There we go. All right. I think we're live.
That's encouraging. I love it when you're sure.
Let's check and see. Hasn't popped up yet, but should be coming soon, hopefully.
No, but Tim's already here. That's good.
Yeah, I saw Tim earlier. Or, I saw that he was there earlier. And there we go. We're popping up now. Hey, here we are. Hi.
Hello.
So I don't know if you're watching the stream, but I changed my aspect ratio to closer match yours.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Your camera's still pointed a little high. Your head is down like at my chin.
How's that? Oh, I had it up a little bit higher because
that's better.
Crap on my floor, but that's okay. That just means I'm a pro, right?
Can't even see the floor. The mic blocks most of that. Of course, now that we're talking about it on the stream, everybody's going to be going, "Oh, I think I see something down there."
Right.
I'm here. My wife's at work, and my kid is with the grandparents. Just me and my coffee. Ooh, I've already had my 2 cups of coffee. And my wife took my kids out to Armstrong Woods. So it's just me and me.
Yeah. Well, I'm still here. My wife's still here. My doggies are still here. But I have a imported Monster Light with the fun resealable cap. So I'm
nice.
I'm in shape. Yeah.
I don't see Bailey running around back there.
She's still in bed with the wife. She's like, I don't know if I want to get up with you.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
All righty.
Yeah, we were up later than usual last night, so I think everyone's pretty out.
You guys just don't understand.
What don't we understand?
Like you've never tried it.
Mint chocolate Trex.
Guys, just
it's a
coming from
gateway
you, Paul?
paste.
What's next?
Yes.
What
It
about
is.
vanilla mint spark?
Did you
Vanilla
not
mint
install
spark.
the...
Oh yeah, it has
No, I
all
didn't.
the protection of Crest.
Because I'm weird.
All the protection.
It cleans, it fights cavities, and my breath has never felt as fresh.
Wow. This makes me want to go buy Crest.
Come on, Dad,
toothpaste.
take a little taste.
And goodbye to you.
There we go.
And there I am. Hello, world. Oh, I like your Star Wars shirt. That's very nice.
Thank you. I got it from Old Navy for like $6.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it even has the cool retro logo.
Yeah.
I have another one that's gray with the yellow Star Wars logo that goes across the chest too.
Yeah. I got
And-
this from Old Navy, but I only paid, I think, $3 for it.
Nice. Yeah, I actually got it online. I bought like, I bought like $100 worth of clothes, but they were having some sale, so it was only like $65 or something like that, and
Nice.
free shipping. And then they gave me a coupon that if I went back online and spent another $75, I could get like 50% off. But I haven't done that yet. So
Right. Still very cool.
yeah.
Some of the most interesting shirts that I own that I always get compliments on because they're retro looking
Right.
are Old Navy shirts.
I know, huh? Well, normally I'll go into the store and I'll get all the ones that just say like Old Navy, and they'll talk about the trestles or something like that. But it'll say Old Navy on it somewhere normally. And Sarah's like,
Right.
you need to stop buying the shirts that actually say Old Navy and get some other shirts. She's like, I don't care if you buy them at Old Navy, just don't let them say Old Navy. So this round that I bought was completely different and didn't have anything to do with actually stating Old Navy anywhere on the shirt.
Right. Well, it's just hard to beat the prices. It's
Yes, it is. It is. And they're comfy, and their
Yeah.
shirts don't shrink, which is awesome for a fat guy.
amen to that.
So,
I am right there with you on that.
ooh, that's
That
on
was
the
just 'cause
screen,
Tim was the
just so
only
you
one
know.
here,
Oh,
so.
well, right, because I don't put the entire thing on YouTube or anything.
Right.
Unedited and commercial free.
That's right. If you want the good stuff, check out the stream. We'll burp in mics. We'll show each other our shirts. And even then, we'll have a dance party.
I think Tim's watching the stream today because he doesn't want to miss out on the audio like what happened last time.
Right. Which, by the way, I double-checked.
Are you good to
and
go?
I'm triple-checking, yeah. It's
Okay.
recording today. I don't know what the deal was the other day.
Good.
Because I actually in the middle of us talking, I was restarting Audition so that it would actually record. Kind of irritating.
Yeah. Just a little.
Just a little bit.
Just a bit outside.
Yeah. And luckily for me, in my stupid state this morning, I didn't have to worry about grabbing noise trade stuff because we didn't share that last week.
That's
I was
right.
in a hurry.
That's exactly right. All right. Come on, computer. There we go.
Oh, you want to hear a fun Star Wars fact that I discovered yesterday?
Absolutely.
You know how much Harrison Ford made on A New Hope?
I do not know.
He was paid $10,000.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
Of course, he wasn't really a name before that. I mean, I think the
No.
only thing he'd been in before that was American Graffiti, but
Right.
still.
Right. And I get that. That's great.
But at the same time, the guy who played Obi-Wan,
Alec Guinness.
Alec Guinness, thought
Yeah.
that the whole thing was complete rubbish. He couldn't understand why anyone would actually want to make this film, but because he was in it, because he was a shrewd businessman, he set it up to where he got 2% of total profits.
Yeah. Well,
off
and
the
that's
film.
Lucas kind of did the same thing with Fox. Was he not only did he got the merchandising rights,
Yeah.
which, you know, all the Kenner toys, all of that stuff, he got percentages of all of that stuff.
Right.
Plus a bunch of residuals from Fox or whatever in the in the making of the first movie. And then when he wanted to do Empire, they're like, "Yeah, we need to renegotiate this." And he goes, "No, we really don't." He's like, "If you want to make this film, the terms stand."
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But the funny thing is Alec Guinness made, like, I think it said in his lifetime before he died, he made $85 million.
Ugh. Off of
just
Star Wars?
just off of Star Wars.
Wow. Because he was in all three, technically.
Yeah. But for very short times on
Yeah,
each one of them. When
totally.
you consider how much screen time Harrison Ford had in the first one compared to Alec Guinness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, it's funny. I think Harrison Ford is just now becoming okay
Yeah.
with the whole Han Solo character thing. I think for a long time he wanted to be known for
Other
his
things.
broad range of work and not
Right.
just Han Solo and Indiana Jones. And I
Yeah.
think he's finally come to the conclusion that, you know what, this is a big part of who I was. And this is
Yeah.
the thing that helped launch me to the career that I have today. So I need to I need to kind of embrace this to a degree. But anytime he does live interviews, he always comes off as such a curmudgeon.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome.
Did you see the one where they were getting questions from the audience, and then later on it was Chewie?
Yes, I was going to mention that. I think it was on Jimmy Kimmel or something
Yeah.
like that. He's standing there going, "That was my wife." It was awesome. I definitely had a good chuckle at that.
Especially since through like the first half of it, you're like, okay, when's the funny part coming? And then you see Chewie show up, you're like, oh.
Yeah, totally. Oh, it's like the SNL skit with William Shatner from back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, and he just goes off on all of them. Get a life. It was fantasy. And
Yeah.
then somebody whispers something in his ear. He goes, "That was a reenactment of the evil Captain Kirk from," what was that? Yeah. Okay. "From this episode." And everyone's like, "Oh, it was beautiful." So, yeah. Mr. Shatner, in episode 37, a rip in time, you went to your safe and you punched in a combination to get into there. Do you remember what that combination was?
No!
Oh,
I made it up. It was different every take. It was your mom's phone number.
That's right. That's right. Let's see here. Song 1. Song 2. Song 3. Making sure I grab the right tracks for the stew.
Well, this is important.
It is. Da, 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 da. I've been watching too much Castle lately. I have the...
See, I really like Castle, but I don't watch it because I watch most of my TV when Sarah's around, and she couldn't get into it, which really weirds me out because she liked The Mentalist. She likes Bones.
Like she doesn't like The Mentalist anymore?
No, it's just we haven't seen it in a couple of seasons.
Oh. They you find out who Red John is.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, they finished that story arc last season.
Ooh, cool.
So
yeah, I think we just need to figure out where we are and then see if Netflix has those discs.
Yeah.
And then get them again.
No, we watch The Mentalist regularly. It's one of our favorite shows. And Castle's another one that we enjoy on a regular basis too.
But I mean, it's weird because it fits with so many other things that we watch together. But for whatever reason, she couldn't get into Castle. I think he was just a little bit too chauvinistic for her.
Well, but she likes The Mentalist.
Yeah,
I mean that's the thing. My sister won't watch The Mentalist because she can't stand Simon Baker in the way that he portrays that character.
Right.
He's just too smug, too full of himself, and I'm like,
yeah.
Seriously? That's funny that she would like The Mentalist, but not
I don't know.
Castle. Interesting.
Yeah.
Chuck is another good one. You watched that, didn't you?
I haven't finished it. I only got to see a couple episodes while it was actually on, and I've been slowly working my way through them on Netflix streaming, which is good. I enjoy it.
I've been watching Scrubs lately. I've seen a few episodes, but I hadn't really sat down to
Scrubs is great.
to watch.
That's another one that I'm still
them.
shocked that Sarah can't get into because to me, like the whole going off to something random and coming back is so Family Guy, and she really likes Family Guy, and for whatever reason she can't make that transition into the live action that is Scrubs. So I don't know.
Funny.
That's all right. I mean, there are things that feel like I should like that I don't. So,
yeah.
Like Fight Club. Still don't like Fight Club. I appreciate a lot of stuff about it, but I don't like Fight Club.
I've never seen Fight Club.
Yeah.
Mainly because nobody will ever tell me about it.
Nice. That was good. No one will talk about it.
No one talks about it. Hey, man, what about Fight Club? Sorry, can't help you.
We don't talk about that.
How are you supposed to promote this movie if no one can talk about it? Oh, boy. We should probably think about getting going. Tim's got stuff to do today, I'm sure. Doesn't want to sit around and listen to us talk about TV shows and movies.
Yeah.
If I wanted to do a podcast about that, I'd call up Jeremy Spring.
This is true.
Of course, they haven't done an episode in a while. It's like he got engaged, and all of a sudden the podcast is on hold.
Cool. Hey, do you know a guy named Kieran Holt?
Kieran Holt. I know that name. Why do I know that name? I think he is a fan on Facebook.
That would seem to make sense because he just messaged me that he liked the new song on the Christian Rock 20 this week or last week.
I want to say, go ahead.
But I knew he had to have some connection to you guys because he's got a 101.7 The Fox logo as his.
Okay.
As his,
so this guy sends us messages often about how much he misses the Fox and how much he wishes that we were more like the Fox and stuff like that. So yeah, we finally had to tell him, look, we're not the Fox. We're a Christian station. This is what we do, and this is what we will continue to do. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this is what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tim just told me he's the guy who keeps talking about the Fox. So yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That makes sense. Plus, also, I mean, he doesn't come off as that smartsies because this is his. Because I asked him which song because there are 3 new songs.
Right.
And he says, I forgot name of song, but if I hear as in hear aging on the radio sometime, I will tell someday.
I don't think English is his first language.
Could be.
So I think that it's a second language. I haven't, sometimes by the way people type, you can kind of guess what their heritage might be.
Right.
But I can't figure his out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Kieran is not a Latino name. It's
No.
more of like I would think Middle Eastern or something along those lines.
Oh, makes sense.
Or possibly Indian, like Indian, not Native American Indian.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. There's, I'm not sure what his nationality is. Not that it matters, but that
Right.
to me helped explain the broken English in what he was trying to say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I figured it was either that or maybe he was just a little bit slow, but either way, it's not a big deal. I was like,
it's
huh?
just, yeah. He hasn't messaged us in a while. Every once in a while, he'll put links up to secular band videos, mainstream band videos, and he'll send us messages with the links and that kind of stuff. And it's to the point now where we usually just ignore because it's not going to do us any good to continue to respond when he doesn't seem to understand that it's not going to help us by by doing that. So, but he seems like a nice kid, and who knows, maybe the music that we play is making a difference in his life.
Yeah.
So I don't know. All right, you ready to get going?
Yes, I do believe so.
Are you actually working? Like, is your doll working?
We'll find out when we hit record, but I'll let you know. I'm staring right at it.
Oh man.
We don't want my doll to go duh today.
No, not today. I don't want to have to go through that again.
Me neither.
Oh
I felt
man.
so royally stupid. I was like, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, well, and we could have redone the show, but it never has the same energy the second time like that.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. I'm about to burp. Whew, I knew that was coming too. All right. Go ahead and hit record in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rock in a Hard Place podcast. My name is Chris Cooner. I am a DJ with Broken FM. You can check us out online at broken.fm. Joining me on this episode is the same guy that's joined me on the previous 66 episodes. Thankfully, things haven't changed. He's the host of the Christian Rock 20. His name is Paul Gibson.
Hello, everybody. And I'll make the confession known to everyone that I made known to Chris earlier. Chris sent me a text like a couple of hours ago. He was like, hey, what are we talking about again this week? And I woke up and literally, and I looked at my phone and I was like, what are we talking about? Oh, shoot. So, yeah. So I'm a little bit more sleepy than I might be normally because I totally didn't think about the fact that we were doing this morning.
Sucking down his Monster energy drink while trying to do the pre-show this morning. So
I think I'm going to make it. But yeah, that panicky moment and going, oh, crap, what time is it? What time is it?
Yeah, I hear you. Oh, my goodness. No, I woke up this morning. I heard my girls running downstairs at about 6:30, and I thought, 6:30? Oh, I got plenty of time. I can just relax. Right. No big deal. And then all of a sudden, I pick up my iPad, and I'm playing a couple of games, and I look at the time, like 7 a.m. Oh, man, I got to kind of get up and start actually thinking about doing stuff today.
Yeah.
Getting stuff, trying to get stuff accomplished anyway,
Mm-hmm. So, I'm with you, man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let me see. We've got a little bit of stuff to talk about today. We're going to go topical again today, but before then, there wasn't a whole lot of news to make you guys aware of this week. It was kind of a slow week. We do know that Anne Boleyn has finished their album, and they've actually titled it. It's called Low Born, and it's going to be released on June 23rd.
Which is, to me, feels like a very quick release date considering how soon they've announced it.
Yeah.
Because I think most people know who are Anne Boleyn fans or who are even just marginal fair weather fans should know by now that this is going to be their last album, that it's being released on Tooth and Nail, and they're kind of gearing up for it, and that's been known for a while. But it feels like they're just giving it a month and a half lead time. That
Right.
just feels very small to me. But, maybe that's the new model of things, because I think a lot of times if you give too much lead time, then people get used to the idea, and then by the time it comes out, it doesn't even seem like it's a new thing anymore. So
Yeah, I don't know if it's called like a rush it to market kind of thing. Like they want to be done, and so let's get it out there as quick as possible. Does that mean that it's a rushed product? I would doubt that. I mean, honestly, Anberlin, the way that they've done everything in the past, they're going to take the time to make sure that this final CD is crafted just as well as every other CD. So I don't think the fans are going to be shortchanged. It just seems like a very short build-up time to getting the getting the word out that the album is coming.
Right. And I mean, there's some precedent for the idea of not giving too much lead time, because while this is not Christian nor rock, the last Beyonce album had no build up at all. It was just all of a sudden it was there. It was on iTunes, and all of a sudden there was just this barrage of, oh, by the way, there's a new Beyonce album. It just dropped just now. I know we didn't tell you about it, but there it is. And it sold like gangbusters because there was this immediate like, oh, it's there, I gotta have it, and that wish was fulfilled. It wasn't of, oh, I'm going to want it when it comes out. I got to remember this date. I mean, it was just, all of a sudden it was there, and it did extremely well. So who knows, maybe this will be a wave of the future of, oh, well, this person's kind of sort of working on something. You can expect something probably within the next year, and then 2 weeks later, oh, here's a brand new album, have at it. So yeah, I don't know.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see kind of what the sound is, what the feeling of this album is. For them to be doing a farewell album and then, of course, a farewell tour to go along with it, I think is going to be good for them in one regard. But of course, saying goodbye is never what you want to have to do, and it's never the easy thing to do when it comes down to it also. So
right. Now, did you hear much about the way that they recorded this album as compared to previous records?
No, I did not.
This is very weird, and you can read more about this story. I think it was sent out as a press release at some point, but it's up on JesusFreakHideout.com anyway. But apparently, when they did this, instead of recording the album together, the musicians did their parts with separate producers that they each selected.
Oh.
So the drums were recorded with Matt Goldman in Atlanta. Then later on, they combined it with bass and guitars in Lakeland, Florida, with Aaron Marsh of the band Copeland. And then later on, vocals were recorded with the band's longtime collaborator, Aaron Sprinkle, in Franklin, Tennessee.
Huh.
So 3 different producers for each set of instruments. So the strings, I mean, both the bass and guitar were recorded by the same person, but the vocals, the drums, the guitars, all recorded by separate people in separate towns at separate times.
Interesting.
Which I think a lot of people are used to the idea of, oh, okay, well, we're going to not be in the same room. We're going to record it at separate times. That's pretty common. And it's not even horribly uncommon anymore to be laying that down in separate cities because, every town of any decent size has a studio and you can go in there and do that. But each one of them having separate producers and it not just being, oh, well, this is our buddy who we knew from high school who's doing this for us. And this is our buddy from freshman year of college who dropped out who's doing this for us. No, they're all established people.
Yeah.
And doing it separately that way. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. I don't think that the result will yield like this hugely new thing, but at the same time, it'll be interesting to see if there is a noticeable difference at all because of it. So I think it could go either way, but I just thought that was interesting that they chose to go that route.
Yeah. Well, like I said, as a final album, you can kind of do almost whatever you want.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you have to worry about what the next album is going to sound like.
Right. And also, I mean, it's like if you turn off the fans with the last album, what are they going to do? Not buy your next one?
Well, yes. But I mean, that mentality still seems kind of silly because, and I'm not saying they have this mentality, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. And I know that's not what you're saying also. But I mean, to have that kind of mentality for your final album is basically a big screw you to the fans that have kept you popular for so long. Well, we don't really want to do what fans are going to like. We want to do what we feel like doing because we just want to, we just want to make sure that we make the music that we want to for the last album. And
that's right, because we're artists.
Yeah, fans don't matter. Red tried that, and they ended up going back into the studio and redoing half their album.
which I'm still angry about. It's
Yeah.
sad, and it shouldn't bug me as much as it does. But I don't know.
Well, it is. It is sad, and it's the fact that the fans screamed so loudly instead of just going.
Okay, that was
going
different.
along with it. Exactly. I don't know. Fans are fickle. Why do we feel we have the right to tell an artist what they should sound like?
I don't know, but Family Force 5 needs to do some backpedaling real quick.
And back to that again. If you miss what we're talking about, go listen to what's available of last week's episode, and you'll be able to hear you'll be able to hear Paul's take on. I'll give you a clue. The title of last week's episode came from a conversation with Kirk in the chat room last week. So yeah, you'll get it.
Which is sad because I see both sides of it, and it's weird because I'm annoyed by it, but at the same time, I also want to defend them, like in all of these forums and comment posts and whatnot that they're getting from other people who kind of feel basically the same way I do.
Right.
But they're like, oh, I hate them now. They were never really that good. I'm like, well, it's different, know.
I think the hate is not worth the effort, honestly.
No.
You just. Bands should have the right to be able to experiment and to make some changes every once in a while. If they want to kind of change things around, then they should be able to.
Right.
So
and no one is arguing that point, or at least I hope not. But
yeah.
I don't know. And then also, it just irks me when people also don't get certain things like. Like I feel like we got kind of the inside track on some things. And even then, I mean, the information I got about that, I think came mostly from the fan club newsletter. And you could tell some people totally hadn't read it.
Right.
If they were on it, but they were like, oh, well, this single is just kind of a dry thing. That's not really a single. They're real singles coming later on in the month. I'm like, no, the press release and the fan club thing said this is our first single. It's already being played on the radio stations, not your radio station, but on other stations. And the other one is not supposed to be a single. It's just supposed to be a music video, which doesn't mean it's a single. But thanks for reading. Love you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just. So anyway, well, yeah.
Oh my! What other news stuff do you think is important enough to talk about today, Paul?
Very briefly, I think this is pretty cool. Wolves at the Gate has announced that they are doing a tour in June with Phineas, Artifacts Pareo, which is the new signing to Tooth and Nail, The Orphan the Poet, which I like. They're a little different. And then select dates will also feature The Red Jumpsuit Apparatus and War of Ages.
Oh, wow.
I know. How crazy is that? So that's pretty cool. And of course, are they coming anywhere near either one of us?
No. This is a dead zone for shows.
Right. It is. Although, you know what I was pretty encouraged, though? Not that I'm that surprised, but did you see any of the photos that were up from the I can't remember the name of the tour, but the one that has Toby Mac and Lecrae and Skillet and all that. Really big one.
I did not. I know the tour you're talking about, but I did not see the photos.
Well, they played at Red Rocks in Colorado, which is just this huge amphitheater that looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere, but it's surrounded by all of these big red rocks.
Okay.
And it's huge, and they sold it out.
Wow.
And I thought that was really cool. Not that, if there was a tour that's anywhere near our genre of music to sell out, this would be it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, wow, that is a gigantic venue. Of course, it looks even more huge because instead of being kind of an in the round sort of thing, it's just one set of bleachers that go hugely high and straight. So, I mean, it makes it just look like a sea of people. But I thought that was really cool. And all the artists seem to be really happy to be playing there. So I guess it's kind of a big deal to be able to play that venue, but especially to sell it out. So I thought that was really nifty.
That is awesome.
The only other thing I can think of newsworthy is that Dream Label Group, which of course is home to Kingdom and Silverline and Summerlin and Satellites and Sirens. They have announced that they are doing a new sub-label called Drum, which apparently is Swedish for dream. And evidently it's going to be mostly headed up by David Tulane, which of course means that it's going to be an EDM slash techno slash electronic music slash dance label, which I think is really cool. The only thing that worries me about this is I can't stand David Tulane's style of EDM at all. I think it's terrible. And I'm sorry for anyone who likes it. That's just totally my opinion. It's just not what resonates with me. But I'm just hoping that when he signs people, he's not going to be doing what some people do. And this is not to say that he will or that all people do, but there are some people who, when they are artists and they get their own label, it feels like they sign people who sound exactly like them.
Yeah.
And that's a little discouraging. So I'm hoping that he's going to pick up some of these people who are doing Christian EDM that do it well, that do sound different, and therefore I will like them.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But of course, in the press release, they're like, and it's really cool that he's doing it because he's in partnership with NewReleaseTuesday.com, and he has the biggest syndicated EDM show in the Christian industry called The Reconstruction. I'm like, yeah, I don't like it, but okay, whatever. So anyway, it should be cool, and it's of course going to have the full backing of Dream label. So I think that will be. It has the potential to be really cool, considering no one else is going out on a limb enough to try this right now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just assuming that it's going to be a flash in the pan, but I think that was an assumption that could have been made 2 years ago, and it's still going.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It could be cool. It might not be. Of course, a long time ago, maybe 10 years back, maybe even more, Tooth and Nail had a sub label that was dedicated to electronic music, but I think they were going about it in the wrong way. I mean, the only kind of bands they were signing were ones that sounded like Joy Electric, which I think is good, but it has a very limited audience, and you can't make a full label off of just very programmed music. Like it all felt like video game music, and not in a this sounds kind of like video game music, which is like, this actually sounds like it should be on a video game soundtrack from 1996. Okay. And they all had very dreamy vocals, and it's okay, but I don't think they went wide enough to really make that label work. So I'm hoping that Drum will not make that mistake and have a kind of a wide base of all the stuff that EDM has to offer now. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Well, you have to have a narrow-ish focus in order to really, I think, do a label right, because otherwise you don't know how to market.
True.
You can't. It's kind of like a radio station that doesn't really have a genre. They just you get country, you get rap, you get hard rock, all mixed into a barrel together. So you never know what you're going to get. I think labels, they can't spread themselves too thin, or else they don't really have a fan base. I mean, think of Tooth and Nail back in the day. Yeah. They were a little bit broad, but they had the audience that could handle that. Like, they had people that were loyal just to Tooth and Nail.
Oh yeah.
So it's one of those things you have to be careful with.
Oh yeah, and I don't want them to be like ridiculously broad, but I don't know. To me, the stuff that was on Plastic Music, which was that sub label of Tooth and Nail, just were way too similar. Like, they all could have gone on tour together, and you wouldn't have really noticed when the change happened.
Yeah. Now, who is this band again? Oh, it's them. Is this them too? No, that's somebody else. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, what about this band? No, that's the first one again.
Yeah, because it was all really dreamy stuff. I mean, it was just very fanciful, which is fine, but I don't know, and maybe I just wasn't into the mainstream electronic music scene to know, but it never felt like there was a huge audience for it to begin with.
Yeah, it is a niche market.
Oh, very much so. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how it all go, but, because right now I think the only thing that I would consider to be EDM that's getting any real play anywhere is maybe Capital Kings and Jonathan Tulane, or David Tulane.
Yeah.
They're brothers. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, beyond that, it just feels like everyone else is like, we put stuff up on SoundCloud and it's good.
Yeah.
But that's it.
And sometimes free.
Yeah, and sometimes free. Matter of fact, probably most of the time free right now, which I'm totally cool with. So I'm hoping that doesn't screw up my music digestion.
Exactly. Keep it free, people. Keep it free. Oh, my. Well, back in the crowdfunding campaign, Emery has reached $95,000 for their new album. $50,000, they said the new Emery album gets made. At $90,000, they unlock a music video being made. If they reach $100,000, they'll record and release the song Anne Marie for free. 110 an acoustic EP LP gets made, and 150,000 full tour of full band in living rooms with all free tickets.
Oh, wow.
So that'll be interesting to see kind of what will happen with that. But there's 6 days left. They're at 95,000, almost 500. So a little bit about 400. They're about $4,500 away from the $100,000 goal. So
Well, tell me, let's talk about this for a second, because that amazes me that they've gotten that high. Not because I don't like Emery, but just thinking about where, in my mind, their level of popularity is.
Right.
Does it seem weird that Emery is at 95,000 with 6 days left to go, and Disciple, who to me in my mind is a much bigger, broader band, is only at 74,000, and they've got 7 days to go?
You know, I think that Emery has done a lot in the realm of promotion through their whole Bad Christian campaign. And I think that they are allowing themselves to reach out to a broader audience than they would had they stuck with just the strictly Christian stuff.
Right.
You know, had they maintained their relationship with Tooth and Nail, like stayed on the label and all of that kind of stuff, I think that that you might see it more in parity with what you think it should be based off between Disciple and such. So, you know, to me, when I look at it through those glasses, that's what I see.
This is true, because I mean, if you think about it, I think that people had more time to get used to Emery even being an independent band,
right?
Because that happened almost a year ago now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been a while. And Disciple, I think everyone assumed that they were still on fair trade up until about a month and a half ago, and then all of a sudden they're like, we're an independent band and we have a Kickstarter. Go give us money.
Yeah.
And, and that was kind of weird, because I think they also maybe made another slight mistake in kind of the realm of what Satellites and Sirens did. People were already used to them being in the studio and already recording, because they had very highly publicized the fact that they were making a new album. So there's nothing really wrong with that per se. But when you say that you're already in the studio, AKA we have money to be here,
right,
and then you say we need money to go into the studio, I don't think a lot of people have the perspective to be able to latch onto that, to say, oh, well, they probably are getting some stuff for free, or at least free up front, and are supposed to pay for it on the back end. Or, the 2 months that they've been in the studio probably isn't covering as much as they hoped it would.
Right.
And there's all these variables, and studio time is ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's a lot of work for people to be able to get that.
Well, and I mean, Satellites and Sirens basically said, we got our studio time on credit.
Right.
And then that's why we did the Kickstarter, was to fund the studio time that we, that we'd already used in order to make the album.
Right.
So the recording time, the production time, all of that stuff was given to them on loan, and they had to pay it back. And that's why their Kickstarter was what it was.
Yeah.
So now, Tim, I think Tim's talking about Emery's new album, but he says they say the new record should be a mix between their last two, so you get some hard stuff and some not as hard stuff. And I think he's referring to the Emery album, because that's what we were talking about at the time that this came up. So
yeah, that would make sense. And then also, as far as the new Disciple record, I've heard a lot of the stuff that was coming out of the Disciple camp on that was that they were saying they were going for a lot more of the grit that they felt like they had, like in Scars Remain and whatnot like that. And they wanted to have those big anthems too, but they were really trying to get back to that real heavy sound, which to me, I didn't think they ever lost. I know a lot of people are like, Disciple hasn't been good since this album. And I'm just going, it's like, are you just listening to the stuff that they're playing on Air One by them, or what? Because to me, I don't feel like they've ever lost their edge. Some stuff is heavier than others.
yes.
But it's
like
not
that.
like there's not like that Kevin has an album where he's like, I'm not screaming on this album. It's just not going to happen. This is going to be our artsy album.
Would that
where
be
we have nothing
classified
but
as a
answers.
worship album?
Yeah.
Would that be worship for Disciple?
Right. Well, and that's just it. I mean, you think about the difference between that and then, like, say, like a band like Showbread, who came out with this album called Who Can Know It, there was no screaming. It was not heavy. They were like, we were inspired by people that we like that are not heavy, like Phil Collins. And I'm just going, okay, this could be interesting. And I just didn't like it. And it was one of those bands or one of those albums that it wasn't a bad album, but in the context of the stamp that was on it, which was, this is a showbread album.
Yeah.
The whole time I'm listening to it, I'm just going, I don't like this. I want it to be the album before that, or even the album before that. Anything else they've ever done, I would like it to be closer to that. So, and then, which is exactly how I feel about the Family Force 5 song that's out right now.
Yeah,
Can you tell I'm
exactly.
obsessed with this?
Yeah, I'm sensing a theme. Another band that we talked about with their campaign was Fireflight, and they've actually crested the peak. They have made it over the amount requested. I think they're at like 103% with 2 days left. So they were able to climb that mountain and get their funding. All of this independent stuff is very different. And when we get into our main topic, we'll kind of cover some of that, because I had an opportunity, and I know you did too, to interview Vincent from Jonah 33. So we'll talk some about what he talked to Tim and I about last Monday in our interview. We'll kind of get into that a little bit later. So a teaser for something coming up soon.
That's right. Right around the corner.
That's right. Stay tuned. Was there any other newsy stuff that you really feel is like absolutely necessary to discuss, Paul?
You would ask me that.
I don't think there is. I mean,
I don't think so either. I think everything else that I saw was pretty much just either not applying or not really that important. So.
Yeah.
No, I think overall we're pretty good.
Cool. All right, let's take a quick break here.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
And a hard place.
New music.
Review.
Satellites and sirens. One noise.
You know when you first buy a pair of jeans? They're a bit stiff, they're bright blue, but they look so good your girl comments on your butt whenever you wear them? Stick with me. To me, that was Satellites and Sirens a few years ago. They were new, edgy, and they got looks and stares from across the room. Their 2011 album Frequency was a huge eye-catcher that even garnered some attention from MTV. Now on their third album, not including a really cool covers compilation, the electronic synth-pop rock quartet from Nashville have released a new project called One Noise. Back to the blue jeans metaphor. When you wear those stiff, bright pants for a while, what happens? They start to wear in, get a bit softer, and, well, comfy. That's where I think One Noise is at. It could be that it's their first record since signing a contract with Dream Records, or it could be the band's experience. But One Noise feels very polished, clean, and safe. Instead of the electric guitars you heard on the previous album Frequency, especially in the hit Anchor, throughout One Noise you rarely hear a guitar and know it's a guitar. Instead, S&S employs a more ambionic synth sound akin to the likes of Hillsong Young and Free. I'm not saying that Satellites and Sirens changed their sound, because they didn't. The foundation is still the same. They just turned the electronic dial up a bit. But I will say that Sirens has matured their sound. This album definitely has that we know what we're doing kind of feel. Jumpstart My Heart is the first single, and it basically encompasses everything I just said. S&S knows who they are, what they do best, and showcase it all in this song. A catchy driving pop song that will do well at any youth retreat across the land, Jumpstart is the perfect song for meeting God for the first time. Another notable track is the transparent and heartfelt Teach Me How to Love. Lead singer Jeff Hunker bears all he is in all his shortcomings and failures, and prays that God would change the way he lives with, thinks of, and feels about the people around him. I think it would be wrong to lump this song in with all the cliche cuts out there. This one has an honest feel to it that others heard on AC radio just lack. Lastly, I'll highlight the song Breakthrough, which features Ontario, Canada native John Steingard, aka the lead vocalist for Hawk Nelson. This track had to be a duet, as it paints the picture of two people offering each other much needed encouragement in the midst of tiring struggles. Jeff and John really blend well together, and I could see both of these bands touring in the future and these guys sharing the stage. Back to my original point, One Noise is a well-rounded, well-written, and well-produced album, but it doesn't have the punch of their earlier work. It should do well on radio and in live performance. On that note, I'm willing to bet, as is usually the case, the songs that seem a bit too soft and safe will really come to life in front of a crowd. I give One Noise by Satellites and Sirens 3 rocks out of 5. For the Rock in a Hard Place podcast, I'm Tom Labonte.
Just like a pair of jeans. Yeah.
That was nice.
It was. I always listen to Tom's reviews in the morning before I play them, just so that I get a feel for what we're getting ourselves into. And Tom never disappoints me. So I love his metaphors. It's fantastic. If you want more information about Tom, you can find him as the host of The Edge on UCB Canada, which is available at ucbcanada.com, and you can check him out at rockfortherock.net. Tom, when he sent that review over today, he's like, I have to miss the stream today because not only do I have to officiate a wedding, but then I have to DJ the reception.
That's the most awesome officiant ever.
Isn't that just the best? I mean, when you're when you're the pastor is performing your ceremony, then becomes your DJ, that just is amazing.
That is just absolutely freaking fantastic. I would totally be down with that.
Oh man,
which makes me think I need to get like an internet license or something to be able to like officiate at weddings, just so that I can do that combo of things.
Yeah, the Unity Church of the Orion Nebula or something along those lines.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because the good Lord knows I'd never make it trying to get ordained by a Christian church. They want too much. They want you to know too much stuff.
That's right. That's right. Because really, we're just talking about the legality thing here.
Oh, hey, Tom is actually here. He just signed in and said, "Hey, boys, dropping in for a few minutes." So
nice,
awesome. Good deal.
Nice.
His ears must have been burning. We were talking about him.
Probably.
So that's awesome. Let's see here.
Oh, by the way, but before
yes.
we get too much further, there is something that I do want to talk about that I'm hoping that I can get more info on, because I knew there was something that I was like, I thought there was something that totally awesome that happened this week. Now I'm just trying to figure out what in the world it is.
Okay.
Well, and I've figured it out. Have you heard about Goatee's 20th anniversary album?
No.
Oh, this is going to be some tasty goodness. And like I said, I'm hoping that I can find what it is. Here we go. All right, so here's the thing. Of course, they're celebrating their 20th anniversary, and to commemorate that, they're doing an album with 20 songs on it with current and previous artists of the label covering other artists and previous artists of the label's songs.
Oh.
So picture this. I'm just going to run through the list real quick. We got Reliant K covering Body B by Johnny Q Public.
Wow.
Capital Kings covering Capital Kings with John Rubin covering Ooh Ah by Grits.
Okay.
The Katinas covering River by Out of Eden. Out of Eden covering Constant by House of Heroes. John Rubin covering Love Addict by Family Force 5.
Wow.
House of Heroes and Stephanie Smith covering Stereo by 4th Avenue Jones. Jamie Grace covering Getting Into You by Reliant K. Aisha Woods covering Refine Me by Jennifer Knapp. Which, by the way, brave move them doing that.
Yeah.
I gotta say that's cool.
Yeah.
Ryan Stevenson covering My Refuge by Sonic Flood. Soul Glow Activator covering Doin' by John Rubin.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, Harper still covering Here's My Heart by Out of Eden. Sarah Kelly covering Bless the Lord by Jeff Deo. Grits covering Undo Me by Jennifer Knapp.
Wow.
Finding Favor covering One More Time by the Katinas. Stephanie Smith covering I Celebrate the Day, originally by Reliant K. Paul Wright covering Valley of Decision by Christafari. And get this, Zilch getting back together to cover Overthinking by Reliant K. Because Zilch hasn't done anything since their debut album, which was their only album, because then they became Sonic Flood after they changed lead singers.
Right.
The Goatee Brothers getting back together to do Goatee's Groovin', originally performed by Out of Eden. And then there's 2 bonus tracks. One of them is another version of Love Addict by John Rubin which is the lounge club version. And then Reliant K will be doing a new 10-year reunion version of the Sadie Hawkins dance, which is, of course, their own song, but they're doing a new version of it.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
Call me geeky, and I know that so many of these groups and individuals are not rock, but I am super stoked about that. That is one that I want them to send me.
I'd get that album in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
just to hear it. I mean, especially for Goatee to step out and allow 2 Jennifer Knapp songs to be redone,
right.
I think is a very interesting and, like you said, bold move.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting.
Well, and I think it's one of those things where if they hadn't done it, it might have been more glaring than if they did do it. Because let's face it, she wasn't. I think she was maybe the second artist to ever get signed to Goatee, and she was one of their biggest success stories for a long time.
Yeah, very much so.
So I mean,
she was. She was very talented. I mean, she still is very talented, even if you don't agree with decisions that she's made.
Right.
Her musical talent hasn't changed.
Right. Right.
It doesn't seem to fit with where Goatee wanted to go, and the whole Faith-wise thing is very different. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, it's not like she's coming back to do a song.
Right.
They're just covering songs
that she did. Totally.
Which is probably the safer of the two.
It is, but it also, I mean, it does bring her name back up.
Right.
Into the realm of conversation, which can be good or
have to do,
can be bad. I mean, it's going to depend on who sees that and how different people react to what is going on there. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I think it's interesting, and I'm excited to hear these different takes on all of those songs.
Right. And I also think it's interesting that Soul Glow Activator is doing a cover, but Family Force 5 is not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean, which is fine. I think that in a way that kind of works maybe more in tune with what would make sense, because, you think about their one album that was released via Goatee, that had Soul Glow on it.
Yeah.
And so if you had the current Family Force 5 come back and do something, that might almost seem more weird than not. Although it would have been cool had they said, okay, well, we're going to go into the studio as the old Family Force 5 just to do this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that might be a step backwards. You never know. So
Tim in the chat room says we could do an epic broken record with that album.
Right.
I don't want to do it. We did a Christmas compilation album one year from Eden Records, and we had every single artist that had a song on the album call in that day and do like a 5-minute interview. So I was editing all day long. And then we had to layer everything, because we would play the interview and then we'd play the song, and then we'd play the interview and then we'd play the song. And it was like, oh my goodness, what in the world is happening? We'd hang up the phone and then somebody else would call in. So it's not like I'd hang up, I'd take the file, I'd edit it, I'd get it ready. It's like we'd do an interview and then we'd hang up and there would be another call. And then we'd hang up and there'd be another call. And then maybe I'd have 10 minutes and then, Tim says it was 15 interviews in 3 hours' time.
Oh,
it was
that's
insane.
Crazy.
I mean, it turned out awesome. It really was neat to have everything layered in like that. Because, it was Christmas time, so we'd ask them, what's your Christmas memory and all of this kind of stuff. And we got to talk to people that we never would have been able to talk to otherwise.
In other contexts,
Yeah, exactly. And it was all because we had Davey Basinger. He's on the phone with all these guys going, okay, it's your turn to call in. Call in now. Because not everybody was even an Eden, not everybody on that album was even an Eden contractee album-wise. So it was, we were talking to House of Heroes, and we were talking to some other guys and a bunch of new bands that we'd never even heard of before. Bands like Raven Hill and stuff like that. It was neat just to get to do all of that, but it was a bloody ton of work. from an editor standpoint, it was a lot of work, but the finished product was worth it.
Right.
But if we do something like this, Tim, I'm telling you now, you better start booking these interviews early, buddy.
Yeah. Right. And by the way, it drops on June 17th. So just
that's my anniversary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Sarah and
I know
will
what Chris
celebrate.
is getting for his anniversary present.
Sarah and I will celebrate 14 years.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that
nice.
crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah, it seems like
Very,
a long
very...
time. I mean, by today's standards, it's a lifetime.
Yeah.
When most couples don't make it 5 years,
Right.
14 seems like an eternity. So
Right. Which if you know Chris at all, you know that his wife is a very patient woman.
yeah, that is the truth.
Which the same could be said of my Sarah too. So
That is the truth. My wife is a saint to put up with all my garbage. That's for sure.
Oh, and one more thing about before we move on from the 20th anniversary album, you can actually grab 2 of the tracks off of it already. They're not free, unfortunately, but you can grab that Capital Kings version of Ooh Ah and the Out of Eden version of Constant on iTunes now. So they dropped those early.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, Paul, you kind of came up with the topic today, so I'm going to let you do all the setup and everything to move us into it. Now, I know it was like you were bleary-eyed and laying in bed trying to think of stuff to talk about, but obviously you had something in mind when you wanted to,
Right. Well, I wanted to talk about the idea of the comeback band. To me, there are 2 versions of the comeback band. And of course, we're talking about a band that's been out of the music scene for one reason or another. And to me, those fall into 2 categories. Either one, they just stopped making music. It was never a big deal. It wasn't that they sent out an announcement on Facebook or MySpace or their newsletter or put it in a magazine or whatever iteration of how to get news out in the music world we're in. It's not like they made a big deal of it and said, this is going to be our last album via, a la Amber Lynn, where it's this kind of setup to this is our last album or that was our last album. Thank you guys for the memories. Goodbye. Or it can be the whole, they just stopped and no one really noticed, or people did notice, but there wasn't really a way to find out exactly what was going on. Just all of a sudden the band stopped putting out music. They weren't touring anymore and they just kind of faded. Sometimes that happens more quickly than others. Sometimes, they'll release the last album. There will be touring for, 3 years off of that. And then it just becomes less and less. And, they lose their record deal in that time period, or, 3 of the members get married or, whatever. And then it just kind of crumbles. Or it could just be they release their last album and that turns out that was the last album on their contract and they just don't care anymore and they want to do other things, so they just stop. They don't post to their Facebook page anymore.
And then there's bands like Children 18-3 who tell you it's their last album, but then when you ask them about it, they won't actually commit to saying whether or not it's their last album. But that's a whole nother category.
Yes, that is a whole other category, which is kind of a weird one. But
yeah,
I mean, so there's those 2 versions of the comeback band. Now, of course, there are different levels of success that reach, because sometimes, obviously it'll be years and years later, and then it's a really big deal, like Stryper coming back, or Five Iron Frenzy, or pretty much any of the ska bands that came back into the world, like the Supertones and the Insiders, and that made a really big deal out of it. And it was a good thing, and it seemed to, on some level, work really well for them. I think Five Iron Frenzy is probably the most successful comeback story that I've seen in the Christian market.
Well, Five Iron is still touring. Like, I haven't heard anything about the Supertones, and I know that the Insiders, their lead singer Joe Yerke is a cop in Michigan. So, that's his primary business. So for them to really make a shot at a comeback, they'd have to quit his job and pour everything into it. And I don't know if the Insiders were ever popular enough to really
do that,
make that happen. Five Iron kind of plays their ska, but they play to a broader audience than the Insiders did. Yeah. The Insiders were ska core. So there's a lot more of the heavy guitar and that kind of stuff that the core aspect covers. And I just, I liked the Insiders. I liked them a lot. But I don't see them being able to make the same kind of comeback that a Supertones or a Five Iron has. And I haven't heard anything from the Supertones since their last album.
Right. And then also, it's funny because the Supertones... And mind you, I might have said something different at the time, but the Supertones to me always struck me as the more trendy out of all of the ska bands that were big. I mean, they very much felt like, at least to me, like they were kind of a flavor of the month sort of thing. And I'd never expected them to be around more than their next album, which of course went for a pretty good while, and they never seemed to lose it. But now that they're back, I don't think they had the hardcore fan following because they were, at least still just to me, kind of that flavor of the month sort of thing, even though that month stretched out into, many years.
Right.
But, Five Iron felt like they always had fans that were like, okay, we are Five Iron friends. And it has nothing to do with the fact that they're ska. It's just we like Five Iron.
Right.
And we like their sense of humor. We like, their depth. We like, all these things about them. Whereas for a long time, especially when they got started, it was ska's big. Who do we like that's ska? Where's ska? How can we get it that's Christian, that's not, perverse in some way? Oh, there's the Supertones. That'll work. And, then that slowly changed over time, and the Supertones went, less ska and more other things in some, iterations of the band. And that was fine. I mean, they changed where they had to, but it didn't feel like they had that kind of like really, really super loyal to the brand following that Five Iron had. So, I mean, I think that does make a huge difference in the whole comeback formula, is having that fan base that was just all about you as a band. It wasn't about, oh, you guys make this kind of music that's a really big deal right now, and then wait 10 years and come back and put that music out again.
Yeah. Well, Tim in the chat room says that Five Iron now only tours on the weekends. So that way, I guess they can still do their full-time jobs, because most of them, if not all of them, are employed in some fashion. And the Supertones play festivals, but that's pretty much it. So, so there
Which
you
makes
go.
sense.
Well, I know Jason Carson, who's the drummer. He's a pastor, youth pastor, something along those lines. So, I mean, I could see where it'd be difficult to pull away from those things. And Mojo, is he a pastor also?
I want to say that he is. He might be a music minister. I can't remember exactly what his...
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me for him to be a music pastor, in some fashion, or even a pastor in some fashion. That just seems to fit within where his heart would be for things.
Right.
So I mean that does make sense. But I mean, when bands come back, there's a variety of reasons why. Five Iron, I think they got together for Mojo is the lead singer. Mojo, the lead singer, is a pastor in Denver, or just a regular pastor. So that's for the Supertones. When Five Iron got back together, they hadn't been like together as a group for a long time, and they just kind of decided to do this get-together picnic lunch thing where they brought all their families and stuff, and they all still had that same friendship, chemistry stuff going on. And so, it kind of got brought up randomly of maybe we should do a song together.
Yeah.
And that kind of started the whole idea of, well, we jammed together and everything felt good. Maybe we should see if people want us to make a go of it again.
Right. And then I that brings up another point that I think makes a huge difference, especially now, in the whole comeback formula, is you have to be able to be very PR driven in a comeback. Because while you can fairly easily, assuming that you had any following at all, and people still remember you, I think you can fairly easily get enough money to do a new record.
Yeah.
Maybe even to tour. But to be able to really make that comeback viable, to where it's not just yes, we wanted to hear one more album from this band. We got that album. We're kind of over it now, and that's okay. Thanks, guys. I think to get past that mental state, you have to really be able to push that PR to where people get used to you being a thing again, as opposed to just the 500 people who are willing to donate, $10 to $20 to help you fund a studio time, and then may or may not come see you at a show, but. Even then, I mean, you think about the numbers on things like earlier we were talking about Disciple. I mean, right now they've got 1,322 backers, which seems like a lot. But let's think about the population of just the state of Texas,
Right.
and what kind of a percentage you're talking about right there. I mean, it's not a big group of people who are investing in these things. It's enough, and I think that that's cool that it doesn't take a gigantic amount of people to make stuff like this happen. But at the same time, for you to jump from we can make an album, we can make a good album for fans who are just really into it, as opposed to we can book a tour that will sell enough to cover gas money alone
Right.
for doing that tour, is a whole different thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. You've also got to be. I mean, the PR machine, I think, is like you say, the most important aspect of what is going on with that kind of a comeback. You have to find a way to either put yourself out there on your own, or you've got to find a label who is willing to take a chance on you. Now, there's got to be some kind of an investment before you get to that point, though, into music of some kind. Like, you can't just go to a label typically and say, hey, you remember when I used to be in this band? Well, we'd like to get back together. And yeah, I know we haven't put anything out in like 10 years, but would you just risk it and give us some money to make an album? Typically, you're going to have to find studio time and stuff and try and cut some kind of a track to show to them to say, this is what we sound like. We're still interested in doing it. And I think what most are finding is that it's probably easier in this age of the independent shift for people to try and do things independently, create that song that they would normally give to a label to demo and put it out there for things like Indiegogo, Kickstarter, what's
Faith
the
Launcher.
Faith Launcher? That's the one I couldn't think of. All of that kind of stuff. So there's lots of different, I think, opportunities for people now to where, because independent is such a major thing, that it's kind of an easier way to go. As I mentioned earlier, Tim and I had a chance to talk to Vincent from Jonah 33 on Monday, and they're going to be our broken record this week. We're going to play that EP. Now, I know you also had a chance to talk to Vincent because he's who was on your show last night.
Right. And it was an interesting conversation. Now, are we going to talk about? We're not talking about his Indiegogo campaign, are we?
No. We're talking about the actual Jonah 33.
Right.
And he basically told, Tim and I, he walked away from the business for 5 years.
Yeah.
He completely got turned off. He did not even listen to Christian music for 5 years.
Yeah.
And because
unfortunately I didn't get to that, but that's interesting though. I like that.
Yeah, he pretty much he was so fed up with the business. And I mean, he was to help explain, and honestly, once we put it up on Monday night, for download, people should grab it and take a listen to it, because Vincent's very real and very raw in the interview that he did with Tim and I. And I mean, we're in the midst of the interview and he's like, okay. You guys talk about real and honest and all of this kind of stuff. Okay, can I ask you a question? And, we were like, okay, go ahead. And Tim, you're going to have to help me out. I don't remember the specific question, but it was kind of along the lines of, what's up with the business, and do you have to be labeled and all of this kind of stuff in order to really, how do you get your music out there? How do you guys choose what you're going to play? I think it was kind of along those lines. And we had an opportunity to share with him that the independent side of things didn't really matter to us. Yeah. That we're just looking for good quality music. And because a lot of big names are going independent, the independent side of things has shifted to where being independent's no longer the stigma. It's no longer the bad thing. It used to be like, oh, you're not on a label? Oh, well, I'm sorry. We can't touch you because, we've got these labeled guys over here that are throwing stuff our way, and so we need to be over there. And thankfully, I think because a lot of these mainstream bands that are popular are going independent, and so I said mainstream, I don't mean like secular mainstream. I mean Christian rock mainstream. Because they're moving to being independent, they're having the freedom to be able to do that. But typically they'll have money set aside to be able to make that kind of stuff happen. Right. Somebody like Jonah 33 or Guardian or whatever, they don't have the money to put an album out there on their own per se. It was, it's a matter of they had to make some small investment and then get people to back them. A Guardian did it through a Kickstarter campaign. Stryper had money to be able to approach a label and say, hey, Stryper wants to come back. What do you say? And they were like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, is good. I mean, I think a lot of label heads at this point are willing to take a chance on a band like Stryper because I think
There's history there.
There's history there, and the people who are fans and were fans of bands like Stryper are the people who still buy albums.
Yes.
And who aren't as likely to steal stuff and will be more likely to buy a full record, maybe even a physical copy, as opposed to buying a single here and there. And I think that goes a long way to be able to tap into that audience. And, you know, that's not at all uncommon. You think about how many mainstream hair metal bands have had numerous comebacks over the years.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. So, I mean, I think that was a good thing. And I think Stryper, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to gauge really how well their comeback has been because you really have to think back. I mean, their comeback technically happened in like, what, 2005? Maybe
sort of.
2004 with Reborn?
Reborn was the beginning of the comeback, but it still wasn't the classic Stryper sound that people really wanted. They tried to, you know, kind of new metal it a little bit. They wanted to update it, and I think the fans were hesitant because it's like, well, it says it's Stryper, but it kind of maybe sounds like them a little bit, but not totally. So I'm not sure if this is what I want. And then, you know, Michael himself, when we've interviewed him, he's said that, you know, we've done some things differently, but we've come to realize that what the fans want is the Stryper sound. And so we're going to do more to try and make that Stryper sound. Now, when they did the album The Covering, they had the one song on there that charted called God.
Right.
That, to me, was Stryper's comeback.
Yeah.
That song was the epitome of what I remember Stryper being when I listened to them back in the day.
Well, and that brings to mind an interesting question. I mean, is the comeback the success moment, or is it just the coming out of not putting out something to putting out something? Because, I mean, if you're going to say that it's when they finally got traction, I mean, for that moment for Stryper, when God came out, I mean, that was only 2 years ago. So, I mean, that would be like 6 years or so after they actually returned to the music scene, which is kind of sad in a way that it took that long for them to really get that traction back. Because let's think about what happened in the midst of that. Okay, so you had Reborn, you had was it Murder by Death? Is that
Murder by Pride?
Murder by Pride, yeah. Murder by Death is a
which was a good album,
right?
But I don't think it was Stryper-esque enough.
Right. But it was closer.
Yes.
Okay, so then you got Murder by Pride. At some point in there was like 7 Years Live in Japan, which I have a copy of.
Right.
And then of course you had The Covering, and then now finally you have the newest record, which I think most people are willing to say, yes, this is what we were really waiting for. We kind of went along with you on the other stuff. That was all right. It wasn't bad. But this is what we really wanted. And it's interesting that it took that long for that to happen.
I think part of that is that, and I'm going to put words into Michael's mouth, just from the feeling I get from reading the part of his book that I've read so far and things like that. It just, I don't know that he was fully in to the idea of Stryper coming back yet. I think that he was doing it because it sounded like people wanted him to do it. And so he was kind of giving it his time. But I don't think he was fully committed to Stryper's comeback until The Covering.
Right. Yeah, which is very true. Very true. And I think I could definitely see that. And also, I mean, you know, Stryper hit some rough spots way back in the day. Yeah. And you know, I could also see going back that full-on Stryper mode might also be one of those things where that brings back up some stuff that maybe he didn't necessarily want to deal with yet.
Right.
Which would be understandable. Once again, that's just us, you know.
We're projecting words in his
mouth, but
basically. Yeah. I'm projecting based off of other things that I've heard and, you know, just times that we've talked to him. He's never said specifically what I mentioned. You know, so understand that it's my interpretation of things that he has said, I'm kind of reading between the lines, and I could be way off base with that. But I think Stryper coming back is a big thing, and I think it's a good thing because I've always enjoyed most of what they've done.
Right.
But it's to the point now to where I think that you could call it a successful comeback. Yeah, Tim says he talks a lot about this stuff in the book, and I'm only partway through the book. So Michael Sweet's book, I believe it's called Honestly, and it's kind of a biography he wrote with some other with another person. So check it out. It's definitely worth the read. It's easy. The chapters are short. Each chapter is only a couple of pages long. Kind of gives a little synopsis of what was going on at that particular moment. Talks about his beginning history, how his parents got him involved, and that stuff. Like I said, I haven't read the whole thing, so I can't say if it's as shocking as like the Brian Head Welch book or the Scott Stapp book. But it's definitely interesting to see kind of. That kind of stuff. Oh, and Doug Van Pelt actually helped him write it. The guy from HM Magazine, formerly of HM Magazine. Which
is slightly off topic, but apparently he's getting some flack because he said something in an interview where basically he insinuated that most of the stuff that was written by Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue in his two different like biographical books was probably complete crap.
Oh, is that?
so Nikki Sixx is like just beating on Michael Sweet right now.
Yeah. Well, Michael, in our interview, he said, the book's not as fanciful as what you get in a Nikki Sixx book.
Right.
But,
well, I think that kind of reaction has grown a little bit to where he's a little bit more forthcoming than just saying something that blunt.
That's funny.
Or vague, but yeah. But basically the idea is look, it's like he's claiming that he was like a huge heroin addict and that he was writing all of this during his throes of being on heroin. He goes, I don't know how many drug addicts you know, but usually drug addicts don't have the ability, especially like on heroin or that sort of opiate or whatever. They're not going to have the wherewithal to be writing in a diary,
right?
Much less to make it make sense. So that just screams just total shenanigans to me. and of course, a lot of other people are like, "Well, no, I used to write stuff in my diary when I was on heroin." Of course, none of it made any sense whatsoever. But yeah,
right.
So I mean, I think that a lot of people, and a lot of mainstream people also who have had interactions with drugs before, have kind of called shenanigans on Nikki Sixx for that sort of thing too, and they're like, yeah, unless you're a big exception to the rule, you probably don't remember a thing.
If he did a bunch of those drugs, he's not necessarily going to remember what he did or didn't do during those times.
Right.
So I mean, it's I don't know. A lot of that stuff is just it is what it is, and if you want to believe it, great, and if it's true, okay, and if it's not, well, all right, then you'll have to answer for that at some other point too. So, but that's his, like I said, his book is not as shocking, and he didn't go through as many things. There's some things in there, he said, that I'm definitely not proud of. Pardon me. But, he's like, it certainly is not as dire as some of these other stories that you would read. So.
Right, which makes sense and is somewhat encouraging.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit about Jonah 33. I've got a clip from one of the songs on the new album. The song is called "Everybody Knows." So let me just play a clip real quick, and then you can go with what you were going to say.
Okay, go for it.
All right.
I can't recall ever meeting a poor man who wouldn't give up his own plans for someone in need. And we all know the human race is vulnerable. And we all know that all of us are capable. 'Cause everybody knows that everybody needs and everybody hurts and everybody plays. We gotta learn to take another glance and give a second chance before your heart grows cold.
So that was "Everybody Knows" by Jonah 33. It's on the new EP that is out now, I believe.
Yeah,
And,
Dead Man Walking.
Yeah, and it's a good EP. I never listened to Jonah 33 before. I really had not. I'd heard about them, but I'd never taken the time to listen to them. But I really dig this EP. I feel like it's got kind of a raw quality to it that I like. It's not as polished as some stuff would be, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Did I lose you, Paul?
Your audio was breaking up pretty bad, so I didn't quite catch what you said, but that's okay.
Gotcha. I just said that it's.
I heard that you said that you liked the EP.
Yeah,
and you went into a little bit more detail, but that was about as much as I got.
Okay, I just said that it's got kind of this raw quality to it. That's not a bad thing.
Oh, no, most definitely not a bad thing. And the stuff that I've heard off the EP, I've enjoyed too. And I think may actually, to me, be kind of a step up from what I remember them sounding like back in the day. I think it may even be an improvement.
Yeah. So it was interesting getting a chance to talk to Vincent. You know, like I said, when we put the interview up, definitely check it out. Now, what were you going to say? If you can hear me.
Different kinds of comebacks. Because to me, there's another kind that's a little bit different and kind of maybe even in a category all its own that does not happen very often, and possibly because it's not, most bands aren't in a situation for this to be a thing. But Petra wrapped up their careers or whatever on a farewell tour back in like 2004 maybe. And it was with John Schlitt on lead vocals. They went through that whole thing. And they did a big farewell tour. I've got the T-shirt. It was their last big thing. I mean, it was like, I think it was basically just John Schlitt and maybe the drummer, and I think everyone else may have been newer and younger. But then just like a year or two ago, the original Petra lineup, the old school Petra, got back together and re-recorded a bunch of songs from previous albums that would have a more updated, studio quality and all that good stuff. And then they did a big tour, which I think served the purpose that it was meant to. I don't think anyone thought that they were going to start recording a bunch of new material and become a touring band again and really make a big career out of it. But they kind of put all this together for a big kind of maybe 3 to 6 months worth of time of that they would be doing stuff, and then that was it. That's just kind of a whole different kind of beast of a comeback.
Well, the rumor was that they were going to get back together and do a part 2 of that never materialized.
Oh.
So, because
I wonder, though, I think I know what you're talking about. It seems
they
like
came
there
out
was
with
a
the
little bit more
classic
to that,
Petra.
yeah. Right.
And they did a lot of their older stuff, like the stuff Greg X. Volz was the lead singer at the time. They did a lot of their older stuff there, and supposedly I'd heard that they were going to do a more updated version, and Greg X was going to learn some of the songs that John Schlitt sang and do them.
Huh.
Which would have been interesting, because it was always weird hearing John go back and do some of the back catalog.
Right, stuff that was not written for his vocal range or style,
right?
Or even just that you're used to hearing one way instead of another.
I mean, just the sound between Greg X and John, vocally, very, very different. Greg is a much higher range singer and a much smoother tone, I guess you could say, and John's more the gravelly rock sound that I really think helped launch Petra to become even bigger than they already were, because he allowed them to kind of grow in their sound.
Yeah, which is true. And then, it's funny because, I mean, that I think did fairly well, and then maybe it didn't do well enough to make the part 2 happen, or maybe they just didn't want to go forward with it. Who knows? I never did hear that much about the part 2 happening or not.
When we got the press release about the first one, and I believe it was called Classic Petra Back to the Rock. And then I was talking to whoever the label was that distributed it. I'd sent him an album, and I wanted to get one of the guys in on the phone for an interview. We wanted to do it as a broken record, and I could never get, I was trying to see if Bob Hartman was available or even Greg X himself. It would have been great to talk to either one of them. But it was never able to happen. And he had told me in the email that they were supposedly going to be working on part 2. But this has been, 2 years now, 3 years maybe since Back to the Rock came out?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
And nothing's materialized. So I don't know. I know that John Schlitt and Bob Hartman have been doing some small tours together.
Right.
It's like John, Bob, and Dino Elefante, I think, have all been hitting the road together. So, but then again, John Schlitz also got this whole TV pilot that they're trying to film that they did the Kickstarter campaign for. There's a lot of stuff going on that I don't know. Maybe things just didn't work out for it. But is that really a comeback when they do one album that's a redo of a bunch of old songs and release it? And then nothing else happens. It's kind of like that'd be like a reunion album without calling it a comeback album.
Yeah, which is true. And it's interesting because I think that in the midst of all this, it's very easy to talk about bands like Five Iron and Supertones and even Guardian that have made a fairly public comebacks. Even though I wouldn't say Guardian has quite entered the circle that Five Iron did with being able to really make it stick, at least not yet. Of course, the full album has not yet even been released to the public yet, so maybe that has part of it. But you start thinking about other bands that have done comebacks that, or at least tried, that you don't really hear about. Like, do you remember the band Small Town Poets?
Yeah.
Did you know that they did an album about 6 months ago?
No.
A new one after several years of not doing jack, not being an entity at all. And it's not bad. It's pretty par for Small Town Poets. But, a lot of the bands that were kind of a big thing in their time, I don't think quite play the cards right, or maybe don't make that connection like they needed to industry wise to really make it work.
Yeah.
But it's just funny to me that bands like them and a bunch of even old Tooth and Nail bands like Craig's Brother, that were a fairly big deal when they were new and whatnot, do these comebacks, or at least try, and it ends up being kind of one of those things where it's either just on Noise Trade or you can buy it through Bandcamp, and they're on all of these B outlets, and some of them do end up on iTunes, which is good. And I don't think is to me shouldn't be that difficult to make happen. And not to say that those two haven't. I think they have by now, but it's just amazing to me how some bands that, at least in the circles that I traveled, a decade or two ago, were a really big deal, don't get any notice when they do try to make that effort as a comeback. Right. And and I think part of that just has to do with the fact that in a lot of ways the Christian music industry just is ever pushing forward because, I think the Christian music industry in a lot of ways, unless you're gospel oriented, are very obsessed with the idea of we want to be the top 40 radio in whatever our little niche is, or style wise, so where it's always what is new, what is now. Because if we ever go backwards, then somebody who tunes in and finds us for the first time, we won't sound like something that they already like that is new and now, and then we can't hook them with that, and then they'll never know Jesus. And so it's this weird pressure that I think Christian music industries and outlets put on themselves to make all of these connections happen. It's like, you've got that one time when they're just moved to the new town and they're flipping through the stations, and maybe they'll hear that one thing that they like, to which to me is almost counteracted by the idea of having vignettes where it's like, and then I was walking down the street and then I was like, there's this person that reminds me of Jesus. To me, it's like, I would be more worried about that.
Yeah.
Being the thing that doesn't get them to listen further than I would about saying, we played this song that's 10 years old every now and again, so I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm stupid and I don't quite get what they're going for, but it is interesting to see that dichotomy of how some stuff just does not get reconnected in the way that it should. And I think that maybe has something to do with why a band like Five Iron or even the Supertones can make a pretty successful, at least run at getting funding and getting at least one album out enough to do something. Because I think that the people who were into the rock or the ska or metal or whatever scene it was at the time tend to have maybe a little bit more loyal of a following to keep up with stuff like that, as opposed to the people who were listening to the Air One or KSBJ or K-Love equivalents at the time, and it's just that's just what they play.
Yeah.
And it was more about this is Christian music as a whole now, as opposed to these are individual bands or groups that I just really, really, really like.
I think comebacks are kind of like covers. You have to be careful how you handle them.
Right.
You know, they can be a great way to introduce yourself to a new audience, but they can also burn a lot of bridges with your old audience.
Right, which is true. And then another thing to be aware of for all of the numerous bands who are contemplating a comeback who are listening to this episode,
Right, absolutely.
is to beware of the spot that I think the band Bride put themselves in. It felt like every album for the past 3 or 4 records was a comeback album, because at the end of every album they're like, this is going into whatever their next album is going to be, is this is our last album. Get it while you can. There will never be another record. This will be it. No more after this. This is finito.
It's like the furniture store that's perennially going out of business.
Right.
You
And
know?
so, I mean, you can't capitalize on a comeback if it's your 4th one in 5 years.
Right.
It doesn't work. And
Yeah.
I don't think that they were ever intentionally doing that. But in a way, they kept on trying to predict what they were going to do for the future. And I think that hurt them. I think they probably would have been better off as saying, we're treating this as if it was our last album. We don't know if we'll do anything in the future or not. It might be our last album, but we don't know.
Well, there's an honesty feel. You know, it's like you said, you don't think that they were intentionally trying to say this is our last album ever to try and drum up sales. But at the same time, if you say it's your last album and you come back with another one, you can't say that other one is your last one either.
Right.
If there's a slim chance, I mean, you wait 10 or 15 years in between, then that's one thing.
Understandable. Yeah.
But if every 2 years you come out with your last album ever, then that becomes
Right.
an issue. And I'm not, like I said,
Right.
I don't know that that's what Bride did, but you have to be careful with that. There's that honesty aspect of things that, look,
Right.
Five Iron had decided that if they were going to call it quits, they were not going to do anything, not even talk about anything for at least 10 years.
Right.
And they held to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you very quickly, I mean, that's to me, the whole Bride thing is kind of like the Christian example. I think that the mainstream example is kind of now just a huge running joke in the industry in general, which is the last tour ever for the Rolling Stones.
Right.
It's like every tour, and I think they just assume that they're going to drop dead before the next one happens. I mean,
I
they've
don't
all
know
done so
what
many
is
drugs.
holding Keith Richards together. I really don't.
It may just be the drugs at this point. You just never know. Maybe it
all
had
the
like
tar.
an embalming effect.
All the tar from all the nicotine has just coated every part of his body, and it's the only thing keeping him alive.
Right. So, I mean, you have to be careful of that, because I can guarantee you that there are going to be people who are very disappointed because they didn't get to see the actual last tour ever of the Rolling Stones.
Right.
Because they've been told so many times that and they just assume, no, there will be another one, because there always is.
Nobody will ever have to fight me for a ticket to go see the Stones.
Right.
So
Right. And don't get me wrong, I get it, but at the same time, you need to quit labeling things so heavily. And I mean, I think part of it is a marketing thing, and who knows, maybe they really think this is going to be the last one. I don't know, but you have to be careful with that whole idea. It's like, if you're going to break up, you need to make it a little while.
Keith Richards is going to be on a gurney, hooked up to hospital fluids with a heart machine and a blood transfusion machine, and his guitar sitting on his belly while he's playing. That's just the way it's going to be.
And then once he passes away, new technology will magically arise that will allow zombie musicians to be a thing.
Mick Jagger will be out there with his shirt off in a wheelchair. Having his nurse
doing the cocky rooster,
having his nurse pushing him around the stage as he sings and does the rooster thing. I mean, that's.
I put my finger, I pointed at you.
I mean, it's. Oh my goodness! I see that happening. It's quite funny. Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
So what, I guess we'll ask the fans the listeners this, what to you constitutes a comeback? I'd love to hear what it is that you want to add into the conversation about what constitutes a comeback. Is it one album and then they disappear again? Is it a string of albums that are moderate to huge successes? Is it just the fact that they're touring together again? Does that, is that what you consider a comeback? What to you defines a comeback?
Yeah, and also, who would you like to see come back that
Yes.
hasn't yet?
anyone aside from DC Talk, because we know everybody already wants to see them, so don't mention them. We know it already. We get it. Apparently they don't get it, but we get it.
Right. Which brings to mind, I mean, essentially, if you think about it, it also depends on your definition of a comeback, because is Audio Adrenaline a comeback?
Yeah.
It's one member of the previous iteration. They sound kind of similar, maybe sort of, not really. And, you know, they're basically able to some degree, ride on the notoriety of Kevin Max to be able to really pull that together and make it work. I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't say the Newsboys are a comeback because they never went away. They just swapped lead singers and kept going.
Right.
And, you know, it's like, is Peter Fuller a comeback? I mean, he said he was done. Then all of a sudden he's got a solo album. I mean, you know, but he wasn't really gone all that long.
Right.
So, I mean, there's all these weird little nuances. So tell us what you think. What is really a comeback? I mean, what bands blur that line for you?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think hopefully we'll get a chance to hear what people really feel and see about this. And I would love to hear other people's take. Tim himself says an album and at least a decent amount of tour dates. So for him, that's a comeback.
Yeah, and I could see that. I mean, to me, that would do it. Because there are a lot of bands who just kind of get together in their buddy studio and record an album worth of stuff and then put it out, and then it's like, oh well, that was fun. We got that out of our systems. Now we can go back to our jobs.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to let us know what you think, there's loads of ways to get a hold of us. You can email us, rockinahardplacepodcast@gmail.com. That's one way. You can Facebook us, facebook.com/rockinahardplacepodcast, or you can go to the website, rockinahardplacepodcast.com. I'll mention them again at the end of the show. Or you can check the show notes. We usually post links to all of this stuff. If you click the little I button for info or look in the description of what the show is about, we have all the links there for you to be able to get a hold of us that way. I have gone through and submitted this podcast to 3 or 4 new places. I haven't heard back from any of them if they're willing to carry them. They seem to be a little more picky than iTunes is with with what they consider okay for these different networks. So there's some ways. There will be, if everything gets approved, there will be ways for people on Android devices to be able to download us, make it a little easier for some of those. I think I'm going to add a link to the actual podcast file that we use so that people can subscribe that way with their own podcatcher if they want to. So be checking out the website for that kind of thing. For that kind of info. Let's see. What do we got here? Oh, I know.
The Rock in a Hard Place podcast presents
The one and the only.
All right, boys and girls, get ready for
The Stew.
Alrighty then. Okay, so it is time for the stew, and because I assume that some of you will be hearing this for the first time, the stew is one movie, 2 clips from the same movie, kind of in a big old pot of boiling, bubbling stew, along with 3 song clips, each from a different song. And of course, the challenge here is for me to put it together and try to stump Chris without making it ridiculously hard and throwing in stuff that I know he has no clue about, or he's never heard of this band, or this is my brother-in-law's band.
You put
know,
country music in there, and I'm going to have no idea what the heck is going on.
Right. But even within Christian rock and metal and hip hop and all that, there is a certain degree of knowledge base that I know that Chris has, and same thing for me. Yeah. So I try to gear it to where they would overlap. So I want Chris to have a fighting chance, because otherwise it just seems like that's just mean and totally not fun for anybody except for maybe me, because then I get to feel superior. But we're not doing that now. There is a theme this week, and I will tell you what the theme is up front.
Okay.
It is the same as our theme for the topic. It is comebacks.
Comebacks, okay.
So each of the band or artist is indeed a comeback, which is funny because once we get through this, we'll probably be like, oh yeah, we should have talked about this because that's technically a comeback. Because one of them is one that we did not mention. Okay. And then the movie is a comeback of sorts as well.
All right.
So give it a spin and see if Chris can figure out all 3 songs and the movie.
All right, here we go.
Violent mood swings, highly intelligent, emotionally unstable. Aptitudes include science, chemistry, and art.
Well, this narrow path, we got no time to dally. Follow my lead, chase the sun back to Cali. Throw your hands up high.
Well, how'd you do?
Okay. So the first song is Audio Adrenaline, Some Kind of Zombie.
Very good. Nice, nice.
The next is Scott Stapp, Slow Suicide.
Oh, I'm impressed.
And then the third one sounded like the Supertones, but I don't know the track.
Oh, okay. Really?
So, yeah.
It was a later track for them. It wasn't off the first two records.
Right. That's great, but I still don't know it.
I'll even give you this. It's a title track.
Okay. That's great, too. Thank you very much.
Ironically enough, it's one of those songs that sounds very much different from most other Supertone songs, and I think it's one of my favorites because of it.
Okay. That again is very awesome.
No, that wasn't meant to help you. That just helps me.
Okay.
That was just a statement of fact. Sorry.
Yeah, I know it's the Supertones. I have no idea what the track is called.
Okay. All right. Well, what about the movie?
The movie, the second clip sounded like Jack Nicholson.
Okay. Would you say there was a movie that was kind of a big boost for his career at a certain point?
Well, there was, and the original was called Chinatown.
Okay. I'm thinking about later.
Later.
Because keep in mind, we're talking about more of a comeback as opposed to a launching.
Right, but the original movie was Chinatown, and then they did one. He did another movie that was based off of like the same character.
Oh,
recently, am I completely not in the right?
Yeah, nowhere near.
Nowhere near.
No.
Okay.
Maybe, and I could be wrong. Maybe this was just like what brought him into my mind as a person, rather than other people, but. To me, this was like, oh, this guy exists. Oh, he was a thing before this?
Huh. Yeah.
I think you should play it again and think about the words that are going along with it.
Okay. Let me I'm going to play this to you again, and I'm going to focus mainly on the movie then.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Mood swings, highly intelligent, emotionally unstable. Aptitudes include science, chemistry, and art.
We mustn't compare ourselves to regular people. We're artists.
Well, this narrow path, we got no time to dally. Follow my lead, chase the sun back to Cali. Throw your hands up high.
Okay, so it was from Batman.
Aha! Batman. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the line from Jack Nicholson, I thought sounded like it could have been his portrayal of the Joker, but Michael Keaton at the beginning didn't sound like Michael Keaton.
Aha.
And that's what threw me. Because he kind of sounded like Val Kilmer, and they weren't in the same Batman movie.
No, they weren't.
In fact, they weren't even in the same good Batman movie.
Right, yeah.
Like
they were in different decades.
Yeah, Val Kilmer's Batman was nowhere near as good as Michael Keaton's back in the day.
No.
So,
and then there's
but I think
Clooney,
a lot of
who
that
we won't even mention.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was just directing. You know, I liked Tim Burton's vision for the first one much better than I liked Joel Schumacher's flashy. You know, when with the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, I was fully expecting bang, pow,
right,
wham, you know, all of that kind of comic book type stuff, because that's the way that he directed the characters of that. So, yeah, not a big fan of the Schumacher. Did like the Chris Nolan ones though. Those I felt were very, very good.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that is going to do it for us today.
Oh no, we still haven't done.
Oh no, that's Noise Trade. Right, Noise Trade. forgot about that.
I don't want people to kill me.
Yeah, we didn't do it last week, and we actually got a couple of people that were like, kind of missed out on the noise trade stuff. So
Right.
Go for it.
Well, one of them is one that we've mentioned before, but it just dropped last week and did very well in sales, as well as the fact that you can get it for free off the new Propaganda album. And
actually, Kirk, who is not here, I guess went and saw Propaganda in concert and said it was phenomenal.
I know. I'm kind of jealous.
Little
right
jealous.
Now.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want to slap him
near
upside the back of the
Nashville.
head. I live in the wrong city, man.
I know.
I just live in the wrong city.
I know.
Maybe one day we can rectify that. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to play you a clip. This is a song called Make. And we talked last time, because the last time that we played a clip from Propaganda, it was one that featured Lecrae. And we talked about how it was very different from what people could probably expect. I think this song kind of blurs the lines of what you should expect. It's still catchy. It still more or less has a chorus, but it very much has the feel still of kind of his spoken word as opposed to a very much to the beat, tons of rhymes kind of stuff. So this one is kind of in between. So if you like this, I think you'll be able to wrap your head around I believe it's called the Crimson Chord, which is the full release from Propaganda. But this song is called Make, and see what you guys think. Here we go.
So push yourself, force yourself. You feel the pain, lean into it. Growl, use your voice like you mean to do it. The P90X of thinking, build up resilience. Pen don't give brain breaks, makes you brilliant. And feast on the catalog, update your dialogue. Fool is still build schools of thoughts out of Lincoln logs. The big homie Chewy off of Hoover used to school me like everything in life. You either do it right or do it twice. Homie, I'm thin like you ain't got an option. Confirm guards calling like y'all in. When the combined force of 4 horsemen forged in hell's furnaces, challenge you to face.
All right. There you go.
Nice.
So that's Propaganda. The song's called Make, and I think it's pretty decent. I like it a lot. Now, this next artist, I believe, I keep in mind, I did this clip last week, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm remembering the details of it right. This next one isn't so much of a... I don't think this one's actually up on Noise Trade. But I have a feeling it will be because he's getting assigned to, he just got signed to Humble Beast. And I believe he opened up for Propaganda, which Kirk was also kind of rubbing our noses in.
Yes,
because he got to see this as well. Just a teensy tiny little bit. But he goes by Jay Givens. And this is off of his kind of teaser video that he put up on YouTube announcing his Humble Beast signing. And after hearing this, I'm super, ultra excited to hear this guy in more depth. But this is a clip from a new song that, once again, is just kind of a teaser for what's to come called Jackpot. So here you go.
This is more than recorded, devour the score than orbit from door to door on tour with a power more than a plan, or just how the Lord, the lion and lamb could save him if Jah becomes man. This is crash test, dummy slap, unraveling mummy rap, cadavers on earth, birth savages in a money trap. Stand up, hands up, stick up, everybody move. This is crash test, dummy slap, unraveling mummy rap, cadavers on earth, birth savages in a money trap. Stand up, hands up, stick up, everybody move.
Oh, I'm sorry. I love that song so much.
Yeah.
And it's just a teaser.
You're gonna have to send me the link. Oh,
Yeah.
that's not that. They don't even have the full song.
No, I mean it's not it's I don't even know that it is a full song. I think that what is there is just what they put up on YouTube to basically say, "Oh yeah, this guy we just signed. What do you think about this?" So I have a feeling that when the album drops, you'll be able to grab that full track. I just kind of hijacked it off of YouTube just so that you could hear a bit of what that's going to sound like. But that is an Humble Beast signing, which means it will be on Noise Trade. So that's a bit of a different take than usual on noisetrade.com.
Something to keep your eyes peeled for.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, and usually hip-hop albums get turned out fairly quickly. So I would assume that you'll probably be able to get something from him before the summer is out. So look forward to that. Jay Givens. And at the very end of last week's podcast, I just kind of threw this in as a last-minute thought, and you should hear this clip just because it's so funny. And if you haven't seen the video yet, go check it out. It's called Bounce House, and it features Heath McNeese and then a hip-hop duet called Free Daps. And it's just so funny. And if you can get even in a little bit into the clip of this, then you should definitely check out the video because the video is hilarious. But anyway, check this out. See what you think. Bounce House.
In my bounce house, I mean peanut butter. Man, that's Gina's brother. Remember when she told me we should meet each other? Well, earlier today we went to Chuck E. Cheese together. Amen, boy. It's so spacious. In my bounce house, bounce house. Everybody wanna get a bounce house. Bounce house, bounce house. Everybody coming in the bounce house. Bounce house, bounce house. Everybody running from the bounce house. Bounce house, bounce house, bounce house, bounce house.
And in case you're wondering, yes, they are talking about the inflatable party thing that you jump around in, and pretty much the entire thing takes place inside a bounce house and the stupid shenanigans that they claim they do in their bounce house. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, you should check that out. And by the way, I just now realized this because all my clips are hip hop and this is a rock podcast. If you're wondering why I pick so much stuff that's hip hop off of Noise Trade, it's because most of the stuff that's Christian that is anywhere near our genre is either praise and worship stuff or it's hip hop. So there's not usually as much rock stuff. And feel free to share links with me if you find something that you really dig on Noise Trade that fits the bill. And I'll keep my eyes open for more stuff that is very more firmly in the rock category. But this is just stuff that I enjoy. So
totally.
Anyway.
Yeah. Doesn't have to
There
be
you
a
go.
rock thing. It's just Paul's Noise Trade pick.
That's right.
So it can be open to whatever. So good deal. Good deal.
Turn.
Which I still don't understand, but that's okay. I'm white. It's all right. I don't need to understand it. I really don't. Man. Well, like I said earlier, if you want to get a hold of us, many ways to do it. rockinahardplacepodcast.com, rockinahardplacepodcast at gmail.com, facebook.com/rockinahardplacepodcast. One of these days, we'll get a Twitter account when we can figure out a good acronym that actually makes sense that we can use. If you have not had an opportunity to hang out with us in our chat room during the live stream, we record every Saturday morning at, we start the stream about 8:50. We usually start recording the podcast somewhere around 9 a.m. We would love to have you come hang out with us in the chat room. Just go to ustream.tv and search us out, Rock in a Hard Place Podcast, or go to our Facebook page or the website and just click the link. It'll take you right to it. You can also, of course, watch this on YouTube if you want to see Paul's and my smiling faces on YouTube. You can check us out there as well. So we'd love to have you come hang with us for the live stream. But if you can't, we understand. At least you listen. And we definitely appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, since Scientist does our opening and closing music, it's worth mentioning at the very end that they deserve a little congratulations because their song "Criminal" went to #1 in the country just this week.
Excellent. It's a great song and well worthy of being #1.
Abso-friggin-lutely.
Somebody had to knock Silverline out of the top for sure.
Oh, but it wasn't Silverline.
Oh, no.
It was Viridia for 4 weeks in a row.
Wow.
Which is still, I mean,
That's an
it's
accomplishment.
a good run.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent, excellent. Well, folks, thanks for listening. I'm Chris Cooner.
And I'm the other dude, Paul Gibson.
Yes, and you know what? I think that whoops, how about I play the outro? There we go. I think we'll see you next week.
All right.